how the news media taught us to love censorship and hate journalism. It traces the devolution of the news as we once knew it.
The Democrat fulfilled a campaign promise. The Republican did something to appease his right flank. The Democrat began by fulfilling a campaign promise. The Republican began his day on a controversial note. You get the point?
Exhibit 1 is the historic trend of major media mistakes in the era of Trump, forming a disturbing pattern.
Yahoo News, left-wing. Google News, left-wing. HuffPost, left-wing. CNN, left-wing. New York Times, left-wing. Fox News, right-wing. NBC, left-wing. Washington Post, left-wing. The Guardian, left-wing. The Wall Street Journal News section, left-wing. ABC News, left-wing. BBC News, left-wing. USA Today, left-wing. LA Times, left-wing.
The tone was set on President Trump's first official day in office. CNN claimed Nancy Sinatra was not happy about her father Frank Sinatra's song My Way being used at Trump's inauguration. Nancy Sinatra responded on Twitter, "That's not true. I never said that. Why do you lie, CNN? Actually, I'm wishing him the best."
Jeff Zucker, president of CNN, hates his guts.
Let's just stay very focused on impeachment.
Time incorrectly reported that President Trump had removed the bust statue of Martin Luther King Jr. from the Oval Office. That false news went viral. In February 2017, TMZ reported Trump had changed the name Black History Month to African American History Month, implying the change was racist. In fact, it turns out Presidents Obama, George W. Bush, and Clinton all called Black History Month African American History Month.
They use projection. Right before they do so, they start attacking the people that they're about to go after of being guilty of the very things that they do.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. Everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
The New York Times reported on supposed contacts between Trump campaign staff and senior Russian intelligence officials. FBI Director James Comey later testified it was not true.
That report by the New York Times was not true. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, in the main, it was not true.
In May, the BBC and The Guardian reported because Trump wasn't wearing headsets, he didn't bother to listen to the translation of a speech by Italy's prime minister. But Trump was wearing his earpiece in his right ear, as always. In June 2017, NBC News reported that Russian President Putin said he had compromising information about Trump. Actually, Putin said the opposite.
Do you have something damaging on our president?
Well, this is just another load of nonsense. Where would we get this information from?
You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this. So they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. It's a tactic. Trump's eagerness to sell out America proves the Russians must have something, personally, politically, or financially, on President Trump.
Trump has been a pawn of the Russians.
But when you start to see a pattern where he basically spouts Putin's lies.
Why this president seems to be putting Russia's interests ahead of our own.
The president's tweet couldn't have been scripted better if it was written by Putin himself.
The very real possibility that President Putin holds damaging information over President Trump.
CNN and ABC falsely reported that FBI Director Comey was going to refute Donald Trump's claim that Comey told Trump 3 times he wasn't under investigation. Instead, Comey confirmed Trump's claim under oath.
It appears that you actually volunteered that assurance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
CNN retracted a report claiming Congress was investigating a Russian investment fund with ties to Trump officials.
There is ample evidence of collusion in plain sight.
Evidence in plain sight, not hidden anywhere. That evidence has continued to mount.
Newsweek reported Poland's first lady refused to shake Trump's hand, but later acknowledged she did. CNN edited a video to make it appear as though Trump impatiently dumped a box of fish food into the water in Japan. The full video showed Trump had simply followed the lead of Japan's prime minister.
The House managers manipulated evidence and selectively edited footage. This is a recreation of a tweet, and you got the date wrong when you manufactured this graphic. House Manager Swalwell showed showed you this tweet this week, and he emphasized that this tweet reflected a call to arms. He told you repeatedly that this was a promise to call in the cavalry for January 6th. The tweeter promised to bring the Calvary, a public display of Christ's crucifixion, a central symbol of her Christian faith, with her.
Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal falsely reported special counsel Robert Mueller had subpoenaed Trump's bank records.
Michael Bloomberg is pledging $100 million just to Democratic PACs and campaigns that are assisting Joe Biden there.
AP reported a new survey showed trust in the media had fallen during the Trump presidency, but the survey was actually conducted under President Obama.
The Democrats themselves are the one who often accuse us of doing the things they themselves are actually engaged in.
The New York Times said a hypothetical family's tax bill would rise nearly $4,000 under Trump's tax plan.
He would send us back into recession with his tax plans.
It turns out their taxes would actually go down.
President Obama is now trying to take credit for the economic boom taking place under the Trump administration.
The New York Times and CNN shared a story with photos of immigrant children in cages. It turns out the photos were from 2014 during the Obama administration.
They use projection. Right before they do so, they start attacking the people that they're about to go after of being guilty of the very things that they do.
In December 2018, NBC reported Trump was the first president since 2002 not to visit the troops at Christmas time, but Trump actually left the White House on Christmas to visit troops in Iraq.
You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest.
ABC aired video purportedly showing a slaughter and horrific report of atrocities against Kurds by Turkey after President Trump withdrew U.S. troops.
This video right here appearing to show Turkey's military bombing Kurd civilians in a Syrian border town.
But the video was file tape of a training video in the U.S. In November 2019, Newsweek falsely reported that President Trump was spending Thanksgiving golfing in Florida. He was actually in Afghanistan serving dinner to U.S. troops. CBS aired a story in March of 2020 supposedly showing a New York hospital crowded with coronavirus patients.
It's all hands on deck in America's hospitals.
It was actually file tape from Italy. A week later, CBS News mistakenly used the Italy video again. And those are just a few examples.
Another day, another media narrative that has completely imploded about President Trump on one of the biggest talking points the Democrats used in 2020 because they wanted to distract from the BLM riots was that Donald Trump had cleared a bunch of peaceful protesters in Lafayette Park in order so that he could have a photo op in front of a burnt out church. The park police themselves had said at the time, guys, we were clearing the park because people were getting violent at the time. That didn't stop folks from tweeting out about the evils of President Trump clearing the park. We have like a bunch of tweets from all these people who push this false narrative. Daniel Dale, the official CNN fact checker, his entire job was just to fire hose a bunch of things that Donald Trump had said wrong. Now his job is to downplay anything the Democrats say that is wrong. February of 2021, he tweeted out, Van der Veen falsely claims the clearing of Lafayette Square last June happened to establish an appropriate security perimeter from a riotous mob. No, they cleared peaceful protesters out of the way for a Trump photo op. So Daniel Dale, the official CNN fact checker, getting it completely wrong because here is the actual story. There was an inspector general, the inspector general for the Interior Department, and here is what they found. When the U.S. Park Police led law enforcement officers into a crowd of mostly peaceful protesters outside Lafayette Square on June 1st, 2020, they did so as part of a plan made days earlier to build a fence around the park to protect officers, not to facilitate the visit minutes later by President Trump to a nearby church. An inspector general's report released Wednesday concluded. The report also found that D.C. police officers fired tear gas at protesters as they moved away from the park toward 17th Street. The park police did not deploy tear gas on June 1st, but did on previous days. But wait, we were told these were peaceful protesters, just people who were out there chanting for justice. And they were cleared because Donald Trump wanted to walk out and hold up a Bible at St. John's Church. Nobody could explain how these peaceful protesters had burned a church 5 minutes beforehand. But the entire narrative was never very good. The media just played it to the hilt. This was part of campaign commercials for the Democrats. This was Joe Biden talking about it openly on the campaign trail. It was Kamala Harris lying about it on the campaign trail. And again, the media just ran with this thing because it was beneficial to their narrative, which is that Donald Trump was a fascist. The narrative was not going to be good for them if it turned out that they had been fostering and backing and supporting rioters who had injured 49 police officers and then made excuses for those people and blamed Trump. That would have been a worse narrative. So instead, it was Donald Trump, evil Nazi fascist, clearing the park of peaceful flower power children.
The president wanted this photo op and he wanted to disperse that crowd.
And it was President Trump sending a message that he feels good about today, looking at these images. He wanted to show that he could move Americans physically out of the way to do this photo op.
Just one day after peaceful protesters were gassed so he could stage a photo op in front of St. John's Church.
If the White House president and his team had to do it all over again,
would you have gassed and pummeled protesters to clear the park so the president could have a photo op?
Except that wasn't true. And when Meet the Press acknowledged that yesterday, it was very, very awkward.
It doesn't second-guess the decision to clear the protesters. It says that the park police was within their rights. This remains an issue of controversy, but the narrative we thought we knew is not the reality.
The narrative we thought we knew is not the reality.
The president forcefully clearing the streets by Lafayette Park. It turned out they were trying to clear the area so President Trump could get a photo opportunity outside of a church.
Many, if not most, of the very high-profile, widely publicized hate crime incidents that over the past 4 or 5 years we've seen constantly in the media. So Jussie Smollett, absolutely confident calling that a hoax. A week before that, Covington Catholic, where the original claim was that these prep school athletes had attacked and almost brutalized an elderly Native American man. Yasmin Saweed, the claim that Trump supporters ripped at her hijab. Eastern Michigan, a racialist graffiti targeting black students. Air Force Academy, where a literal general had to travel to campus to put down what initially looked like racial frictions. Grand Rapids, the young black girl pre-college who claimed that boorish white men literally urinated on her. Kean College, that's the death threats delivered to black students on a college campus. Wisconsin Parkside, that's the one with the nooses. The burnt black church in Mississippi. University of Virginia, where the claim was that the fraternities were running these sort of story of O-style anti-feminist rape rings. All of those turned out to be fake, along with roughly 500 other cases.
The whistleblower explained that Facebook automatically flags comments that express any concern about the coronavirus vaccine. According to those documents, here's one example of what Facebook considers a Tier 1 vaccine hesitancy comment. Quote, if the vaccines are so useful, then why do we still need to wear a mask or social distance afterward? Fair question, but not allowed. Morgan Kallman is the whistleblower who exposed all of this. He's been suspended from his job at Facebook. It sounds like any real questions at all about the vaccines are not allowed by Facebook. Why would they want to ban people from asking honest questions or reporting real side effects?
They're afraid of what people might conclude if they see that other people are having negative side effects, and the users at Facebook are not aware that this is going on. If you're using Facebook or a social platform and they're censoring the content of your comments unbeknownst to you, I think that's highly immoral.
I consider that heroic. This country used to consider whistleblowing heroic.
The left are okay with slurs. It's okay for Biden's son to use racist slurs. And no one says a word, not the media, no one. And why? I ask. It's what we all ask. Why? Why was it okay to beat down President Trump with cruel intention against his beautiful family? Why was it okay to constantly harass them for what they, the left, accused them of being racist when Biden's son is the lowest human being? A poor pity of a man who's not well, who's done wrong. My fellow Americans, this world has been turned upside down with negativity from media from the left. And this is a disgrace. A president of the United States whose son is the lowest form and no one says a word.
Last week, news broke that Hunter Biden used the N-word multiple times in conversations with his attorney in 2019. The Daily Mail reported that the messages between Hunter and his lawyer were on Hunter's laptop. Joe Biden's son has repeatedly been at the center of scandals.
69% believe it was inappropriate for Joe Biden's son Hunter to have a role at that Ukrainian natural gas company. He had a board seat there while his father was vice president and overseeing Ukraine.
They're okay with slurs. It's okay for Biden's son to use racist slurs, and no one says a word. Not the media, no one.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent.
They quote Biden as saying that a, quote, non-orderly racial integration would cause his children to grow up in a racial jungle.
They're going to put you all back in chains. Whether you're for me or Trump and you ain't black.
The actor questions why it was okay for the left to harass Donald Trump and his family, but not call out Hunter Biden for using racial slurs. Mr. Voight warned America was in great danger when the president changes hands.
We choose truth over facts. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money.
Updated results show Trump actually won with 56% to Biden's 42%. Antrim County officials have not identified what caused the skewed results to begin with.